Alright, we are now recording. Just sitting here, waiting for Sean Wright to show up. Merry Christmas. Very Merry Christmas. Please let me know in the chat if you can hear me. I would really appreciate that. I'm just going to drop a line in the chat. Can you hear me? Can you hear me coming? Testing 1, 2, 3. Looks like we're in the meet. Alright. Hopefully you can hear me. And we're still waiting for Sean Wright. Should be interesting. I'm not sure if he'll show up. Got somebody on the line here. Sounds like somebody's trying to talk, but I cannot hear them. Alright. Let's make sure this is working. Sounds like just got one person here. 2 people here. If you're in the chat, if you could just drop me a line in the chat, or else if you're on your phone. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Glad it sounds good. Alright, I'm going to kill this background noise. That might be, wonder if this sounds any better. So it's just me rocking out to some old tunes here, getting ready for Christmas. The recording has begun. Anyone is free to talk if they want to right now while we wait here. And I'm ready to go. Kind of looks like, Jane, kind of looks like you're trying to say something. I'm wondering why I'm not able to hear you. Need to adjust here. Get this figured out. Just all depends. Maybe I do hear somebody. See if there's anyone else there. I think I can barely hear you. If there's any way you can pump up your audio, that would probably help. Testing 1, 2. Okay, I can hear that. Here's something going on there, but okay. I'm gonna keep your mic on for now in case you want to talk. Okay, we're about 8 minutes in, just waiting. Our moderator should be here soon, and we'll give Sean Wright some time to join in. If he doesn't want to, that's fine. So, hey Jane, thanks for joining. I don't know if you can hear me. Well, you said you can. But, okay. I'll keep you on. And if he doesn't show up, obviously, this will be a very short discussion. And maybe I'll just go over the questions that I was going to ask him. I think maybe we'll do that. So I got a ton here. Obviously, the first question is, how can you prove David Crowley is guilty? Okay, where is the evidence? And I know we've all been saying that. We've all been talking about it. But every time we give Wright a chance to answer the question, he just dances around it. Fun dancing, but we're going to keep looking for the truth. Still open. Still open to all possibilities here. Just, we're not seeing any proof that would show David Crowley is guilty. So we'll keep on trying. Keep going with it. I think that's very interesting. Very interesting stuff here. Okay. Now we are in the hunt. Alright, so I'm just testing different sources here. Got my one source. This is my backup source. How does this backup source sound if you get a second? If you can drop a line in the chat, I just want to make sure the backup source is also good, so we don't run into any issues. That would be awesome. Let's see how it goes here. Or else I'm just going to begin and spend some time chatting with myself, I guess. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so we got two sources here working. No problem. I like that. And we're just going to keep going, keep moving along. So on Thursday, December 14th, 2017, Sean Wright accepted my invitation to a debate. So I wanted to give him some time to prepare for that, and so that we would find a date that would work for both of us, and more importantly, that we would also give people enough time so that they could join in and listen to this live. Now it looks like Sean has decided not to show up, which means I'm going to be declaring victory here very shortly and declaring myself 2-0. And that only leaves one person left. That only leaves Danny Mason, who has also accepted my invitation to a debate and also has not
Hello.
All right. It looks like we got somebody here. How are you? Oh, dropped off the meeting. Okay. Well, that's the thing. Here we go. Because I'm on two different lines, I have to remember to mute myself when I'm on one and to unmute myself when I'm on the other. So, my fault. So, it looks like that person hopefully will be calling back in. Who knows? Maybe that was Sean Wright trying to call in right now. We'll definitely know in a few minutes. So, where was I at? Well, it still goes back to the one question. If I had one question to ask anybody, it would simply be, how do you prove David Crowley is guilty? So we know we gave Sean Wright that chance. He chose to just throw out a bunch of cuss words and write a bunch of nonsensical things and just spout some very weird, very strange things. So I found that very, very odd that he would do that. But still, I said that I was going to be here, and I'm here. So I'm hoping Sean Wright will show up too. Who do we have here?
This is moderator Eric Spitfire Wilkinson.
Hey, what's up, Eric? How are you?
Doing well. How about yourselves?
Life is good, man. How's my audio? It's okay?
Audio is coming through crystal clear.
Okay. Let's see.
Is Sean present also?
Yeah, we have one other person here. We have Justice Jane here. We're just waiting for Sean Wright to see if he's going to actually show up or not.
Okay, and who else is there? Jane?
Yeah.
Excellent. Hi, Jane.
I think Jane she might have muted herself for a few. Oh, she's back.
I'm unmuted.
Okay. What's up, Jane?
Good. Just waiting for the action.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was going to be, I thought he was going to be here. That was the whole point.
I'm broadcasting out live on my my backup station because my current main station is down for another month because of Sandy Hook, which is a whole nother rabbit hole to go down, but we'll see if he shows up.
Yep, definitely. Or else I'm going to declare myself undefeated 2-0. How about that?
Be the shortest broadcast I have done in a long time.
Yeah. So I was just letting everybody know that it was Thursday, December 14th, 2017. Sean Wright contacted me. He said that he would debate me. So I figured we would wait, give everybody some time, give him some time, give myself some time, and give everybody who wanted to listen in live, give them time too. And then I think the following day he called me and started cussing at me and left me a voice message and all of these text messages and this and that, calling me all these names and all that. But hey, I'm still here. I'm still ready. And even in wrestling, if the guy doesn't show up, they give him a 10 count, and the person who's standing in the ring wins, and the other person loses.
That is the truth, and isn't it par for the course that many of these individuals claiming to want to come on respectfully and state their opinion never show up?
Yeah, why? Why do they even say anything?
And Greg Fernandez, I've known Greg for a while, him and Dan Henneman, and they investigate different, if you want to call them conspiracy theories. They're really usually just truths. And I've seen this happen many times. They're honorable guys. They're very respectful, and usually their opponents never show up, and they are usually the opposite of respectful. Now, Sean is what in relation to David Crowley?
I think that's a really good question. I guess he was involved in the Gray State project at some level. Sean Wright claims to be one of the last people to ever see David. And Sean Wright, I think he has some ties to the Gray State social media, but he was one of the first people out there really bullying people, really trying to force people to accept that David Crowley was guilty. And all we ever asked for was proof. Where is the evidence? I'm definitely open to it, but if you can't provide the evidence, then don't make the claim. And if you're going to make that claim, then just say, this is what I think, you're free to think whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. But Sean Wright likes to pass it as fact, but we're not going to let him do that because it's not a fact.
Were you ever able to get on with Mason Hendricks, who is another supposedly close friend of David Crowley's, who completely believes that David Crowley murdered himself, his wife, and his young child? They left the dog alive, though, to eat the bodies. And there's just so many holes in the story. It's like a piece of Swiss cheese, is it not? Yep,
it is. And yes, I've spoken with Mason Hendricks many, many times up until recently, but he never wanted to talk publicly. So that's, that was kind of the whole thing. But he would tell me things too that later on I would find out were not true. So we have all of these guys making these claims, which is fine, and their stories don't match, but they all come to the same conclusion that David Crowley is guilty. Depending on who you ask, you might get a different story about what they think happened. Like, it's okay for them to speculate on what might have happened, but if we do, then somehow we're being disrespectful. We're attacking the families. I can't tell you how many times Sean Wright has, claimed that we've gone after David's family and blah, 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 and done all of this stuff, which is kind of strange because I kind of think that's what Sean Wright has done. He's gone after a lot of people who still have questions and who are still open to the possibility that maybe David Crowley is not guilty. And hey, maybe David Crowley is, but there's no evidence. There's no proof to it. So why would anybody say that, yes, David Crowley was, and try to pass it as fact? Mason Hendricks, I would say, even though I disagree with him, he disagrees with me, we were able to talk as human beings. We were able to talk as real people. So that's the big difference between chatting with somebody like Mason Hendricks and then somebody like Sean Wright. Now, Mason Hendricks would still throw in those jabs. He'd still do his little jab, but he never cussed. He never, I don't know. It was just like day and night with those two guys. And they're very close. They're very close friends. So that's a whole nother thing. I think our moderator has dropped off, but hopefully he'll get back up there. And I don't know, Jane, what do you think? Should I just go through these questions? I mean, I'm sure Sean is going to listen to this later on.
I think you should go through the questions, and then if anybody in the Justice page wants to chime in, they can either call in or put a comment later.
Sounds good to me. Okay, so obviously, question number 1, what convinced you David was guilty? And I guess this is where Sean would start cussing and calling everybody names and attacking people, blah, blah, blah. And he would never have a direct answer. The only answer that I ever got from Sean Wright is, I know the evidence, but I can't share it, or I'll share it when I can. Well, here we are, 2 years later, 3 years later, and nobody can still share this, nobody can still prove it. They've done all of this effort to, but I don't think it's working. So that would be the first question. Let's see. Well, I would like to know why Sean Wright chose now to debate me. What is so special now when he's had the opportunity for a year, 2 years to debate me, and he never did? What is so special now? I would also like to know who else Sean Wright has contacted. Sean Wright, who else have you contacted and tried to intimidate and tried to convince people that your way is right, and if there was a revolution, or if David Crowley was guilty, that you would start a revolution? Let me tell you something. Sean Wright is not going to start a revolution. Sean Wright, I don't know if he understands what a revolution is, and but hey, if Sean Wright is a part of a revolution, that's not something I want to be a part of, definitely, because if he is going to be so quick to just spread that theory that one of his friends is dead and not provide any facts or anything, well, that's not somebody that I would want next to me side by side during a revolution. Definitely not. Everybody should be innocent until proven guilty. That's the way this should work. And Sean knows that. Sean knows better. Definitely knows better. Eric, are you back?
I am. I dropped off there for a second.
That's okay. We were just saying, hey, we might as well just go through some of these questions that I intended on asking Sean Wright. I know he's going to hear this, and I know he's going to want to answer those questions, so why not just ask him now? And if he can't be here, hey, now he has time to answer those questions, and if he wants to come back and actually answer those questions live, not try to contact people privately and cuss at them and say all this stuff about you're going to come by people's house and do all these things and blah, blah, blah. You know, why don't we just have a civil talk here, a civil debate, and just say, okay, you know what, I'm right, and this is why. So I'm going to have to label him as Sean Wrong, and I think I'm going to take on his name as Greg Right, because I believe that I'm right, and I believe Sean's wrong, because Sean cannot prove that David Crowley is guilty. I think I'm going to rename his last name.
Sean Wrong. And I'm getting messages that the audio is out, so I think now is the first point which we're actually going to have audio going on. So many strange things happen when you broadcast. So for people just tuning in, it looks like the debate partner has decided not to show up. Could you give us a brief synopsis, Greg Fernandez, of what this debate was going to be about tonight, why there is a debate, and why the people who you challenge to debates constantly never show up?
Well, this was simply to prove David Crowley was guilty. That's what Sean Wright was going to do here. Now, maybe because he can't prove it, maybe that's why he decided not to show up. But he was given time. He was given plenty of time to show up here tonight. It doesn't take much. You can call from just about any place. So that's why I think he did not show up, because he knows that he would be Sean Wrong, and he would not be able to prove that David Crowley is guilty. So for him, it's better just to not show up. Maybe he's smarter than I thought. Now, I think the reason why they don't show up, I think the reason why these people will not show up is because it's not going to make them look good. It's actually going to raise more questions. They don't want any more questions raised. They want to move on. They want to take David Crowley's project and make money off of it. Even though they think that he's guilty, they still want to make money. They still want to go forward with a project created by somebody that they think killed their wife, killed their daughter, and then killed themselves. It is ridiculous. I mean, you can make this stuff up, because a lot of this stuff, I believe, is actually made up. It's all theory. It's all fear. It's all meant to distract. It's all meant so that people don't focus on the real facts, so they focus on me, so they focus on these wild theories. They might even be some of the people that are putting those wild theories out there, so that they can later try to discredit them. But
now, is Amy still on with us, by the way, Greg?
Jane is here.
Jane. Amy, Jane. One of those common names. Eric's another one. Greg's another one.
That's right.
Could Jane or Greg, could either of you just give maybe somebody who's tuning in just to learn about what exactly we are talking about, how this began, and how we have gotten to this point right now? I know that's a lot to frickin' go through. Basically, what David Crowley's being accused of and what his project was that makes us believe that he was murdered before he could complete it.
Jane?
I think I'll let you take the ring on that one.
Okay.
Greg?
Well, you have to remember, my view is very biased, because I am not a Gray State fan, and I'm also not sure that David Crowley was actually murdered. I'm not coming to any theory, but here is what the cop said. What the cop said is that David Crowley, who was making a film, a anti-government film called Gray State, they said that David Crowley snapped. He went to this dark place because of the stuff that he was looking at, because of the movie that he was making. They say that David Crowley snapped, killed his wife, killed his daughter, his 5-year-old daughter, and then shot himself. They say David Crowley wrote 2 notes, neither of which were signed. There was one written note in the office bedroom that said, submit to Allah. Now, David Crowley is not a Muslim, as far as I know. I believe he is a Christian, but I am not sure about that either. But how do police walk into a room, see that somebody has written submit to Allah now, and it's not signed, and they just think, well, that must be David. Okay, well, maybe you do handwriting and all that stuff, and you figure it out later. The second note was in the kitchen, and it was on a laptop, and I believe it just said, I have loved you all with all my heart. And once again, it's not signed by David Crowley. In the living room, somebody wrote in blood, Allahu Akbar, in somebody's blood. Now, the police say that David Crowley wrote that in Kamel's blood. So that is kind of where we start here, where we're seeing, okay, they've created this story that David Crowley is guilty, and where is the evidence to back that up? That's all we've been asking. That's it. The police investigated this for 1 year and then quietly closed this case, and they are not taking questions now. They are not discussing this case now. So this was just an open and shut case. The police say that one of the reasons why they believe David Crowley is guilty is because they found no signs of somebody forcing their way into this house. They completely disregard the back door that was unlocked. It was open, so they didn't need to look for anybody forcing their way into this house. Somebody had an open door policy to go into this house. To make it even worse, in the living room, there was a bullet hole that the cops also missed. This bullet hole was not found until the 3rd time that the cops were called to this house. This is the same bullet hole that leads to the bullet that the police say David Crowley shot himself with. I know this is a lot of stuff here, but these are some of the basic things, some of the simple things that I always try to bring up first, because they are the most important things, because they always say that I am some David Crowley fan, that I believe that the government killed him. I'm not saying either of those things. Those are just lies. So there's so many lies out there. It's just about, okay, if David Crowley is guilty, let's see the facts. We were told year after year that the facts were coming. They're right around the corner. All you have to do is just trust us, shut up, don't talk about it, and that's it. And here we are. These bodies were found, I believe, on January 17th, 2015. And here we are, still looking for any possible proof that David Crowley is guilty. And I find none, and that's why I think Sean Wright did not show up, and that's why I am about to declare victory and to declare myself undefeated in debating this case.
Well, if you do not show up to the playing field, then you are defeated. And right now, I have a screen share going on right now of what they said David Crowley wrote. And this is the first that I've heard of this, Greg Fernandez, so I'm kind of freaking blown away now that this was not even his own handwriting here. It says, open the Rise, most recent version, and submit to Allah. And this is not even his handwriting?
Well, we don't know. They never really did any tests to prove that this was his. From the very start, I'm telling you, from day one, they began with a theory that David Crowley was guilty. So in their eyes, they didn't need to do all of these tests. They didn't need to look for these certain things. They didn't need to look at the fact that David's right hand was missing. they just said, well, David shot himself. Okay, well, if David is right-handed, his right hand is missing, where is the proof that he even shot himself?
Right. So, I mean, it's such a simple thing. And just to give people a little backstory, if you've never heard of David Crowley, I mean, David Crowley was a screenwriter and an aspiring filmmaker, and he was working on his first independent film, which was exposing the New World Order and the Illuminati, by the way. And he had a wife whose name was Kamel Crowley, when she was a registered dietitian, and mostly worked from home also, just like her husband. And they had a 5-year-old daughter, Rania, and she was a very smart kindergartner, and she rarely ever even missed school. But everything changed when all three were found fatally shot on January 17th in the living room of their house. And investigators immediately pointed to an apparent murder-suicide 3 weeks earlier, after they finally found them. Immediately is a key word, and they found an Arabic phrase written in blood on the living room wall. And they also found the spiral notebook, which we were talking about just now, supposedly written by David Crowley, submit to Allah now. And the Apple Valley Police Chief, John Reitzigo, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Reitzigo, he apparently decided that this guy just snapped, and that's why he did it. Now, as we're revisiting this year after year now, Greg, we're finding that this is a bunch of BS, and nothing points to this being what they said it was.
Right. And they were saying that David Crowley killed himself because his project was failing, he wasn't going anywhere, which now we know is not true. David was working on the Gray State project up until the day he was killed, or up until the day he killed his family and killed himself. However you want to look at it, that is what the Gray State team will not tell you. And I use the Gray State team, I use that term very, very loosely. But they will not talk about that. And why? They also say that David Crowley was broke, when we know that David's dad gave him a $14,000 check and left it, well, the $14,000 check was left on David's porch on December 26th or December 27th by David's brother. So I'm not buying the fact that David was broke or they killed themselves because they were at their end. They had everything going for them.
Do you suspect that some of his friends, now David Crowley, to bring the backstory, David Crowley is a veteran, and he had served in some overseas wars, and they were claiming PTSD also as part of this. But he was a fringe, supposed lunatic guy who snapped. And that's what they want to portray to everyone. And a lot of people swallow it wholeheartedly without even looking at any of the evidence. Now, over the years, Greg and I have done several shows along with Dan Edelman, and we have done analysis of the crime scene, and we have found so many anomalies, so many things that make no sense. And in addition to earlier, the audio, I guess, wasn't working, but I saw some new photos that you presented, I think about, 3 weeks ago or so, and it showed a big bag of dog food. Now, the dog knows what bag his food comes in. I have two pooches. They know where their food is, and they'll freaking knock it over and try to even gnaw into it if they're hungry enough. So there's a big bag of dog food. I would think that they would go for the tearing into the dog food, that the dog would go and tear into the bag of dog food far before it would go tear into its owner's freaking flesh. But the dog food is still sitting there. The bag is unopened. I mean, just ridiculous things like that. So many ridiculous anomalies that have been presented here. Everything adds up to a deep state hit.
Yeah, there was,
I want to chime in too. When they say that David Crowley was snapped or he was mentally ill, they can't even agree on how he was mentally ill. I mean, that doesn't make sense. There's like several theories floating out there. One is he's obsessed with violence his whole entire life. The other theory, he has PTSD. The other theory, he is a domestic violence abuser. The other theory, he had joint mental illness and his wife caught the same mental illness and entered into a suicide pact with him. And then when you ask questions, it's, oh, we don't have the answers because he's insane. They can't even agree on that. Their views in itself constitute irrationality.
Absolutely, it does. And these two were, by all respects to most observers, a happy couple. And again, their daughter was happy and in school and was doing well. So nothing. And then suddenly this happened. Now we know, and we're doing this show tonight for another reason. The reason we're going to continue when the opponent has not shown up, we can safely assume they've been defeated. You lose, but we can safely. It was Christmas when this happened, and there was presents stacked outside their door for weeks. Was it 3 weeks? I believe. Is that right, guys?
Yep.
3 weeks, and like there's presents like tilted on top of each other. They're in the exact. In other words, they're in the exact same position that they were when they were left there 3 weeks later in the middle of winter. Which there's no way those packages would have been moved around. They would have been worn. There would have been snow on top of them. They would have been wet. But anyway, we went through these many times. Anyway, long story short, he was making a masterpiece, exposing the New World Order. A masterpiece like we've never seen. And I've heard other people say that, oh, movies like this have been made, but not in the detail this was. And when we finished this broadcast, I made a promo for my station using the trailer, and I just put some different music to it. And when you see this, you tell me that you see any of this, no matter how much you say they're exposing the New World Order, it was doing it in quite this way, where they actually show the people sitting in the freaking control room with the huge freaking Sony Trinitrons watching your house and showing it that way. Now, and this is reality now. So what we were seeing back then has happened now. And in my opinion, David Crowley will always go down in my head as not only a martyr, but a great man who took the ultimate risk to expose the New World Order. So that was kind of a long-winded rant, but my wife had told me when I was coming down, she's like, okay, you're the moderator, so you have to be non-judgmental. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to until the end. Until the end of the debate, when we've completely shown that this man was murdered by the deep state, then I'll put my 2 cents in. But until then, for sure. And I think, again, every time Greg Fernandez calls out somebody who wants to prove their side, and this is a man I've known for a while, he's a good guy, very respectful, very close to Christ. So the reason for him not showing up could not be that Greg was going to attack him or be vile. The reason they never show up is because they know the truth too. And now what Greg's asserting is that the reason they're doing it is because they're selling out their freaking one of their best friends to make a buck. Because they're remaking the movie now, aren't they, Greg?
They are. There's no doubt. They're gonna try, but I don't know if it's gonna work.
What does that look like now? I mean, we've been waiting. What? It's been over 2 years now, right? Or almost 2 years
For the movie?
Since they said they were going to remake it.
Well, I think they've tried to shop it to people who have turned it down. I think the same people that David Crowley was working with to get this done, Danny Mason and Joe Biggs, I guess they tried to shop it to the same people, and they don't want to touch it. I don't think any Hollywood company is really going to want to touch this project. It seems odd if any of them would.
Almost like wanting to touch a project about what really happened on 9/11. Same concept, or Sandy Hook.
Yep, that's true. That's very true.
I would like to add something too. There's a YouTube video out there. It was a promo David did with a company, and I think he was going to promote Gray State products with this company. And so before he died,
Hothead Productions.
No, it's another one. It's on the Justice page. I have to check the name, but
I'll see if I can find that.
One of the promo videos actually showed a man working on the Gray State Project, and he doesn't realize that he's being watched the whole time. And then somebody breaks into his house and shoots him, and he dies while working on the Gray State project. I just thought that was so eerie that that promo really predicted what happened to David and his family.
Yeah, how odd that people would become silent, even close friends of David Crowley and his family, after witnessing some atrocities like that.
Yeah. Very strange.
And I'm on the page, so I like to find a production company.
Oh, I can look too.
Yeah, if you see it before I do, just let it go on. I guess we really don't need to go much longer because, I mean, a 45-minute window, he probably got caught in traffic or something like that, right?
Sure. Yeah. Let's just go with that. Why not? Sorry about
Okay. Well, what was that?
Sorry. Technical difficulties here.
Michael Entertainment Group, is that right?
Michael Entertainment Group. Mm-hmm.
Let me get a screen share of this. Just amazing after I've thought that we have delved into every aspect of how this is completely portrayed differently by friends and family, even the family, than the way we see it after investigating it. Let's get a screenshot of this.
There's so many layers to it. But we're still left with the same basic things. We either have people who... another big thing is when this movie came out, when this new documentary came out called A Gray State, a lot of the things that were written about that film always tried to show David, or tried to call David, a part of the alt-right. And it's like, I don't know when that term first came out, but I don't know if I would necessarily call David any alt-right. And even the director of that film also says that David was not a part of the alt-right. So where did this alt-right thing come from?
We see a lot of that with social justice warriors too, and that's one of those trigger words. I'm waiting to find out. They have to disclose everything 30 years, the government does, 30 years afterwards. They have to disclose everything. That's why we found out about JFK. But the word extreme right, we hear that a lot now, rather than alt-right. And alt and extreme, they both conjure up memories of Nazis and Hitler. That's extreme right. The alt-right. These are trigger words that make people think negatively, and they do it on purpose. I just wish, on a different note, that President Trump would frickin' repeal the Smith-Mundt Act. And if you do not know what the Smith-Mundt Act is, reinstate the Smith-Mundt Act, because it was repealed a long time ago, and that gives the media the right to not tell you the truth, to broadcast propaganda.
Really?
And it was, the Smith-Mundt Act, yes. I think it was 1967. So the media is allowed to tell you lies. And I would love to see if our president wants to really impress some of us that know the truth about things. And after re-signing the NDAA, we'll talk about that on another show, but the Smith-Mundt Act, I believe it was 1967, was put into place that the alternative, not the alternative media, but the mainstream media can broadcast propaganda whenever they want. They can lie. They don't have to tell the truth.
Wow.
And I would love to see Trump put it back into place, because it was repealed a long time ago. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think the Gray State team would actually like that. That might hurt them if they ever they want to keep moving forward with their own crap.
Right.
I do have some more questions, I guess, that I had asked.
Yeah, you start the questions before I lost you.
I think, we've kind of been in and out on these questions. I mean, obviously, there's really only one question here. Sean Wright, prove David Crowley is guilty or admit defeat. That's it. That's the main one. So I didn't expect to get past that first question because I thought he would do the same thing he did when he called me, and when he left me all of these text messages and just saying all of this stuff and just cussing and making all these claims and spreading more lies, lots of lies. So, but there were some other questions. Why did Sean Wright, when there were two, when this first happened, there was a Facebook page and a Facebook group that were created for justice for David Crowley. Sean Wright and some other people wanted to run those two sites. They wanted to control those two sites because they wanted to control this story. Which, if it was, if it was to help clear up the good name of David Crowley, I could see that. If it was to say, you know what, guys, David Crowley killed his family, and this is why, I could see that too. But that's not what they did. They wanted to shut it down. They wanted to make sure that nobody was asking questions. And you can go back in those first few days after the bodies were found, and you can see how many people tried to come out playing a victim. They're not a victim. Sean Wright is not a victim in this case. Danny Mason is not a victim in this case. There are 2 or 3 victims. And then there are questions about what the real story is. And that's all. So, Sean Wright...
Sean Wright and Danny Mason, they were both, if I'm not mistaken, they were both served in combat with...
No.
With Crowley. Or was it just Mason?
No, that was Mitch Heil.
Oh, neither of these guys did?
Correct.
Who are they to David Crowley?
Good question.
Who are these? Okay, well, wow. I was under the assumption that they both had served with him or were at least family members.
No, I think Danny Mason was the guy who got David Crowley involved in looking at a lot of the stuff that we're always looking at, September 11th, all these theories.
So these are just random people, basically?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would say random, but yeah, everything happened very, very quickly once they all met, and all of a sudden this trailer that David makes takes off, and they start building the whole Gray State team and building their future plans for the whole Gray State project. So Danny Mason is almost like a co-creator of the Gray State, even though...
Right. Refresh my memory, Greg. There were people that served with David Crowley in the military that were coming out and saying that they believed the original narrative themselves, correct?
Correct. And that's Mitch Heil. Yes.
Mitch Heil, that's the name.
Yeah. So he also thinks that David Crowley is guilty, that we're all crazy for just asking questions and blah, blah, blah.
And these are actual people that were very close with him. When you served together in a foreign war, was he in Iraq, Afghanistan? I think he had a couple tours, didn't he, over there in the Middle East?
Yeah, I think David served in both of those. So, and I think
right. So when you become very close, you become like brothers with these people. And again, you get scared when you see somebody being, what we believe, in our opinion, murdered in cold blood, including their young daughter. You might shut up too. Might go for the other team too.
That's true. Now, David and Mitch knew each other before they joined the service too. So they knew each other, I think, in high school.
I guess the bottom line is that they're providing no proof that this went down according to the original narrative.
That's right.
And we're seeing all the telltale signs of a false flag. And people out there, again, learn your terms or you'll do a great disservice to truth seekers. Learn that a false flag is when people actually die, 9/11, and a hoax is when nobody died, Sandy Hook.
There it is.
It's very important to use those. You know, Dane Wigington's been out there kicking ass about geoengineering, and he urges everybody to stop using chemtrails. I still like the word chemtrails because there's chemicals in the sky and they're trails. They're chemtrails, but he says if you're trying to wake somebody up and you try to search the word chemtrails, you know, the first 1,000 hits you'll get are disproving it. So use the word geoengineering, and then you'll get the right information.
Well, I mean, truth lives.
This
so.
was not a hoax, though. This was a false flag.
Yeah. Once people, I mean, I don't care what you call it. You can call it cloud seeding, all that stuff. But whatever gets them thinking about it, and really, even those people that might go and look up chemtrails and be like, okay, this is all fake. Once you say, well, you know what, you thought that was fake. But have you looked up this? But have you looked up cloud seeding? Have you looked up the weather modification programs? Then it starts changing their mind too. So that's kind of how I was with David Crowley's thing. I started with guessing that David Crowley was guilty, and now I'm having a very hard time finding any evidence that he is guilty.
And I noticed in the survey that you had, you can check yes, no, or unsure, and you yourself even checked unsure.
Sure, that's right.
Unsure.
Yeah.
And none of us are 100% sure.
Right.
That that we're right, but the evidence points towards if this was presented in a court of law, we would win, and the people that we subpoenaed as witnesses would not show up, as you're seeing tonight. I mean, simple as that. Just it's bad. And to me, when I say false flag, I believe this is a false flag on David Crowley. I believe he was creating something and about to release something so real, so in your face, so thought provoking that they had to silence him. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think, too, when you look at Danny Mason's background and how he really was masterminding this film before he met David, and it was going to contain some kind of spiritual or mind control elements, he's kind of rambling. You get that sense. So you kind of almost get the impression that when Danny met David that he wanted to create a film, but it was going to be a controlled film and a controlled message. And maybe it was going to be propaganda. But David broke away from his control. David started doing things on his own. And then it was like, oh, shit, the rabbit got out of the hat. We got to contain this thing. This guy is about to blow the lid.
What an excellent point, Jane. That was a great point.
Yeah. It sums it up right there.
Well, we're almost an hour now. I would say we've probably given Sean wrong ample time to show up and state his case.
Does that mean I win?
You win.
You would be declared victor by just about anybody who is not. Well, you know what? These days, nobody's supposed to win. Everybody gets a medal. There are no winners. So you did. Oh, just ridiculous. Yes, 100%. You were declared the victor. Sean Wright, you better go back and create another sock puppet account. That's probably not even your real name. And come back as somebody else and grow some balls to show up to debate, to prove your position, because you have failed utterly. Fail.
Yeah, and it was simple. It was simple. He contacted me. You have to remember, he contacted me after these deaths. He contacted me trying to tell me that David Crowley was guilty and don't get involved in this because you don't want the FBI and the Department of Homeland looking at you and just all these very weird things. Wait,
what the hell they think was going to happen making a movie like this in the first place?
Yeah. So how is he open to all of these theories that happen with all these other people, but he's not open to one of those same theories that happens with one of his close friends? How is that possible?
Right.
I mean, unless he's a plant.
Say it again?
He could be a plant.
He could be.
Maybe he needs to look like he's open to these theories to get to people who really are open.
To what purpose?
Well, I mean, he's a reporter with We Are Change. Well, not really a reporter, blogger more likely, but he's he's getting involved with groups and movements all the time. It wouldn't take much to appear like you're open, interview them, get some information.
Did you say We Are Change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke Radowski, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
there you go.
You could easily screw somebody over, get information on them, find out what their groups are doing, do some surveillance, give them fake information. I mean, possibilities are open there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was always questions about Sean Wright. Even before this whole David Crowley thing happened, I was, and I don't know if it's true, but I'll just say there were definitely questions, and that's why I think for anybody who is looking at this case, anybody who is listening to this now, go watch a video with Sean Wright in it. Tell me what type of feeling you get. Tell me what type of vibes you get from this person, because from the very start, red flags. That's all I kept saying. Red flags here, red flags there, because it wasn't about truth. Now, we are three people here talking. We all have different views about this case. We probably all have different views about many different topics, but we can all sit here and have a nice talk, and we can agree to disagree. We don't have to yell. We can just say, we think this, blah, 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 and we're not going after the other person. Sean Wright is different. He tries to go after people. He tries to twist the truth. He tries to twist the facts. His problem is that it's not working. It's not working. People aren't buying it. People are not as stupid as he might think they really are. I think people see through this.
Well, and I think too, when Sean Wright got involved, he had several legal problems, and he was desperate for money. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster there. Wouldn't take much to, make his problems go away. What wouldn't he do?
Another excellent point.
Yeah, and that goes to the Facebook post that after David died was taken down. There was a Facebook post from December 9th, 2014, where Sean Wright talks about David. Sean Wright is trying to make sure David doesn't put his tax stuff into the documentary that David is making. And David says, you don't have to worry about that. Your tax stuff is not there. Well, Sean Wright did end up having some tax problems because he didn't pay his taxes. So, but why that?
So those tax problems perhaps taken care of for supporting this narrative.
Yeah. Well, he's I don't know. There's just a lot of strange stuff like that. But I would like to know why that December 9th, 2014 post was taken down after David died. The only bad thing is that it mentioned Sean Wright. Why is Sean Wright contacting people? Why is he trying to bully people into believing whatever he wants to think is true?
Well, when is this movie going to be released by the co-producers? Is a big question. It's been like 2 years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, and they won't touch it. So
nobody will touch it.
Nobody will touch it, and they shouldn't. I mean, only if David is not guilty, then I can see somebody touching it. So that's why it's like, well, wait a minute. How are we going to say David is guilty when there is no proof? I guess I would have to go with the theory that David is not guilty until somebody can actually prove it. And that's what I was hoping Sean Wright would do here. I've had a debate with Judy Prochnow, who lived next door to
Let's talk about Judy Prochnow.
Yes, so she also thinks that David Crowley is guilty. I spent 3 hours talking with her just to basically find out that she didn't know much more than any of us did. She only knew what people told her, and she was living right next door to David. She didn't talk with David more than maybe once, twice. She did not know him, but yet she came out trying to act like she did. Everything she was saying is second-hand information. It was not, the only thing from her that was first-hand was what she saw when she went over there and looked in the window of David Crowley's house. That's it.
Now, I would say about Judy, she was probably one of the first people that was interviewed on the news about the case, because she was the neighbor, and she discovered the bodies. So her face is on the news, right? Now we're finding out that Eric Nelson, within a couple of days after the death of the family was announced, meaning Eric saw these news things most likely, was contacting friends, family, anybody close to David and planning this documentary. So he's spinning his narrative from the beginning, which would make sense why Sean is trying to shut everybody up and silence them, because they're creating a story. And it would also make sense that if somebody like Sean or Eric or somebody else saw Judy in the news, got a hold of her early on. I mean, she's really effective. She discovered the body, she's the neighbor. She says something, a lot of people are going to believe her. Somebody could have got a hold of her right away.
Slipped her a cool $10,000-$20,000 to support the narrative.
That's a good
right in time for the holidays.
Yeah, because she was nice to me. I thought we had a really good talk. So, and that was another person I was able to sit there for 3 hours with. We could disagree on just about everything and just let the people decide whatever they thought was true. I don't think Sean Wright knows how to do that. I think for him it's either my way or it's nothing, or there's something wrong with you. And it's like, well, you know what? This isn't about me. This isn't about you. This is about one simple question that you can't ask. And that's why you lose. That's why you continually lose, because you're holding on to something that is not there. You're holding on to a theory, and you're trying to pass it as fact, and it's not going to.
Even more so, this is about the truth. Bottom line, what really happened.
That's it.
I think it's interesting with Sean, too. So if Sean really was one of the last people to see David alive, it's interesting that he had this inactive Twitter account. He hadn't used it for years. And then spontaneously, on December 24th, he posts a picture of a Christmas tree, and then never posts again on that account. I mean, that's just, to me, is bizarre. Why do you feel the need to post a dated Twitter account showing where you are when you're one of the last people to see David alive?
Another good point. Well, full of great points, Jane. Great meeting you. Do you guys want to add some more things? Or I mean, it's 10 after 10 now. He's at over an hour. He's not going to show up, I don't think. But I think we've educated people a lot more on David Crowley, as Greg always does, and now Jane is doing the same. You even brought up more questions in my head than I already had, and I was already convinced, like the mind control aspect, like the fact that the letter might not have even been written in his handwriting.
Yeah,
like the fact that the dog food was sitting there unopened. The dog didn't even try to get into his own dog food. Decided to eat
that whole dog food.
Decided to eat the family instead. That's just that sealed the deal for me when I saw those pictures.
Yeah, somebody posted that, and that's why it's so important to get so many different people to look at these crime scene photos, because I had seen those crime scene photos many times and completely missed that. And somebody saw it once and was like, oh, wait a minute. Now, there is one strange thing that we do need to, I hope that we can talk about that, is the Bohemian Grove statue inside of David's house. I've been trying to figure out why he had that there. Okay? I'm seriously investigating the possibility of demons involved in this case. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you consider everything else, it's not so crazy.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, this is a battle between spiritual warfare that we have going on right now on many fronts. I mean, good versus evil. That's I agree with you.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been looking at that, and I think this new documentary kind of goes there. I don't know if it's goading people like me, if it's trying to create some bait on a hook that I might follow and try to create this theory. Okay, this is what happened. David was killed by demons. The demons got him, and blah blah blah. Which I'm not gonna do. I'm not that stupid, you know. But I am looking at the proof. And from what certain people have told me, that David did dabble into the satanic stuff. So I do have.
Sure, and we both. But Jane can probably concur with us that in this, when we're seeking truth, it's shocking to you. And personally myself, I've seen lots of people go off the deep end and lose their shit, lose their spouses. Lose their mind because of where this brings you. So we certainly are not ruling out that this may have went down somewhat the way they said, but we're still waiting to find the facts out about it. But yeah, that's another great point you just brought up, Greg.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
And I think you can't overrule either that many of the people in the team and around David were dabbling in occult and spiritual stuff. And then early on the Justice page, you had somebody that was basically trolling the page, and in her profile picture was actually witchcraft paraphernalia. And there's a skull and a candle and a couple other things, so there could have been influences, too, around him that led him down that road.
That's true.
But the main problem that I have with this whole deal is that, much like Sandy Hook, everybody was declared dead, and it was a murder-suicide right out the bat. Bang. That's just the way it is. And anyone who tries to debate that is demonized.
Yeah, and when you think about the fact that what Colin Prochnow saw, what he first said about seeing did he say mannequins? Or statue. He said something like that. That the bodies did not look like bodies.
That's
I gotta find the quote.
Yep.
I thought he said dummies.
Dummies, right?
Dummies.
This is Kat, by the way.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for.
Is there a new person in the chat?
Yeah.
Who do we have?
I'm Kat.
Hey, Kat.
Say that again.
Kat, K-A-T.
Oh, Kat. How you doing, Kat?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm real good. I've done several shows with Greg, and we always present lots of clear-cut evidence. But still, it always helps the case when the other person doesn't show up. Much like a defendant or a witness in a court case, they don't show up, the case gets dismissed. And but I assume, Kat, that you're on here because you have some thoughts about the subject of David Crowell and Gray State. And we're live on YouTube also on Sentinel Eric Spitfire.
Oh, I have lots of thoughts, but you guys were talking about the Bohemian Grove statue. My first thought was maybe that it could have been used maybe as a prop to begin with, and maybe that he started looking into it. I mean, he had all kinds of things all over his house, and who knows, what he had elsewhere.
Oh, so you're talking about the Bohemian Grove statue that David might have been using that as a prop. Maybe that was part of his movie or something?
Right.
Yeah.
To add into the movie, like to take angle shots with the camera from afar or something, I don't know. It was just an idea.
Oh, imagine that, a bunch of Illuminati New World Order paraphernalia around while you're making a movie about the New World Order and the Illuminati, right?
Yeah. Right.
Like the House of Cards, right? Where they talk about all that.
That was my first thought on it.
Stuff. That would also raise questions about this whole film, too, about where David was heading with it, I guess.
Well, it depends on which version, I guess. Mm-hmm. We don't know what his revised version was going to include anymore.
Right, so they were going to make it into a TV series. That was the last that we heard, and Dan Hinnon can probably back us up on that. He's also on here too.
Right.
So, Kat, what's your view on this whole thing?
On the whole case per se?
Yeah.
Well, my personal opinion is that due to the fact that David was going another route with everything, cutting those people out because he didn't trust them anymore, and they stood to lose money or status or whatever once he cut them out of it, that because of their actions and their words after his death, I think that they were involved in getting rid of him.
But why? I mean, wouldn't that make them look bad? Wouldn't that make them...
I don't see how it would make them look bad because, look, now.
Yeah.
It was just ruled a murder-suicide, and nobody gave any thought to the production end of all of it. All they thought was, the guy went crazy and killed his wife and daughter and himself.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys have started out with, when you came on, Kat, with about the ending of the story, and I'm screen sharing it right now. 5 days later, on January 20th, 2014, the story had completely changed. After 2 years of trying to extract the Gray State story, I think I finally may have done it. The story has completely changed. It was working beautifully, and the new outline was completed in only the last 3 days. With its new story, it will not be hard to attract funding. And then the following day, David Crowley explained he had rediscovered Gray State's ending. It's a strange experience, finally feeling genuine love for characters I've created. The most painful part of writing, the conflict for these people who are precious to me, is that I must now torture them, punish them, and drag them through the dirt to reveal their essence of form. Yesterday morning, I rediscovered Gray State's ending, and the final feeling captured was of such gentle sadness, I've been stuck in it ever since. What is he saying in this statement?
When you read Death of a Dystopian, it describes how David brought this film to a script consultant. And apparently in the original Gray State, the main character died. And she felt that he needed to change that ending and keep the character alive. It also says that there were too many characters and that the film was too detailed. So I think some of this rewriting is, his personal process, but he's also getting professional feedback on what he needed to do with the film.
Mm.
So he was very serious about this.
Well, at the end, and you can spin it to say that he's making a euphemism here, because the most painful part of writing the conflict for these people who are precious to me is that I must now torture them, punish them, drag them through the dirt to reveal their essence of form. You might be able to kind of think that maybe he's talking about some of those people around him who he was pulling away from, as we did see towards the end of this family's life. They pulled away from all these people. And perhaps the characters who he was speaking of may have been people that actually lived very close to him and were friends with him. Maybe he was saying it in the statement. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I found this on your page, Greg, a few days ago, and I found it very enlightening and very maybe using a code, because I believe maybe he was talking about some of these people that are trying to support the original narrative. And he found out about them. He drew into this little circle, drew away from all of them, and then they ended him. What do you think?
It sounds like, what do they say, that life imitating art, or art imitating
Right. Just, this is amazing to me. Every time I go to Justice for David Crowley and Family, is that an open group on Facebook? Justice for David Crowley and Family.
Was created by Dan Hinnon.
And can anyone go there and join up if they would like to learn the truth?
Anyone can try, yes.
But they're allowed to comment. I know with the Sandy hoax page, we have it limited to, well, it's not my page, but it's limited to a very small amount of people. They really don't want to go over 2,000, because then you invite in a bunch of unsavory characters if you just open it up. My opinion, you should have as many people on that page as possible, and then you can beat them out. But, you know, who am I? I understand how that goes. On this page in particular, is anybody who just wants to seek the truth allowed to join?
Yes.
So I would urge everybody to come here and look at this amazing story and what's going on. And then when Greg's ready, Greg, we gave him almost an hour and a half now, didn't we? When Greg's ready to sign off, then I will play the original trailer for Gray State, and then I took it and I put some different music to it, and we'll see how that works out. Hopefully I won't get a freaking strike because of it. But Kat, you just joined us, and Sean didn't show up, but I'm sure you thought that was going to happen.
That wasn't a surprise.
That was like an afterthought. You know, I got home from work tonight, and about 25 minutes before the show, I sent a message to Greg, and I said, "Are we still on?" I was still going, because I figured he wasn't showing up. But then I thought again, I'm like, man, I've done so many shows exposing Gray State. I want to set this up. I'm going to live stream it, because it is important for people to come here and check the story out. Because the more things that we have against this deep state, the more BS, the more lies, the better. What do you think?
Right. Well, as many people's opinions or bringing up points, I think the better. The more, the better.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Greg,
do you want to keep going?
Yeah.
Kat, do you keep going?
Oh no! What I was saying is, like, different people's view of looking at the crime scene photos. Like, there's things that, like what Greg was saying, you look at them and you look at them and you look at them, but you still miss things here and there. And
right, like the big bag of dog food that was sitting there that the dog didn't decide to chew on through the bag to get to its food.
A bag of
ridiculous, trying to chew through its owners.
And yeah, so the more new eyes to look at the situation or the case, I think the better, because it does need a new set of eyes, and it does bring out new points. And I mean,
wouldn't the toilet be completely devoid of water? Wouldn't the dog, after 2 weeks, think about a dog lapping up water? Wouldn't that toilet bowl be just empty? Or did the dog flush the toilet too? Where else is it going to get water from?
He lifted.
Well, that was my point. If, because I had mentioned to Greg a while back, unless the toilet tank seal had a leak and was filling up that bowl, the only water that had ever been in that bowl was whatever was in it after it had been flushed, how long ever before the dog had been drinking out of it.
I love that you brought that up, though, Kat, because again, that's the kind of truth seekers we are. There is, it could have had a leak or a seal break where it could have been filling up water. Therefore, that would be debunked. And we're all for people coming on and bringing things like that up. Unfortunately, They never can. So basically, what I'm saying is that we're the type of truth seekers that actually we're giving you information to use against us, and you're still not using it. Ridiculous. Right. Apologize. Just that. I like that you brought that up, that there could be an alternative for that, too.
Yep.
And maybe she was putting, or maybe Kamel had been putting the dog's water dish in the dishwasher to run it through, because, I mean, I clean my dog's bowls, regularly, and maybe that had been one of the things that was in the dishwasher that she was going to run at the time. So I don't know.
That shows that you're genuine, though. I like you bring that stuff up. It's important to be genuine when we do this.
Yep.
I think didn't Dan post pictures of the toilets on the Justice page, and one of them, obviously wasn't flushed, and there was another toilet, I think, with the lid closed.
Yeah, there were 3 total. There was only one that had the lid closed. Now, the 2 that had the lid set upright, if you look at the toilet seat, it looks very, very clean. I mean, almost too clean. And if you look at the toilet lid, it looks like it was wiped up, like there was something that was actually wiped off there. But both toilets...
I remember going through those pictures with you, Greg.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that was back when they only gave us 2. Dan Hinnon put in a second request and was able to get the photo of that 3rd toilet, because that's what we wanted to see. How much water is in there? How much water was in those toilets? Because that was probably the only source of water that this dog had. Now, for the dog bowls, it's also possible that there are dog bowls there, and we just did not get photos of them.
Yeah, but for almost 3 weeks of water. Yeah, I mean, again, I own 2 dogs. Now, they're bigger dogs, but, I mean, they go through 2 or 3 water bowls in 6 hours here. That water's gone. If you don't fill it back up the next day, there's no water in those bowls anymore.
Right, and those toilets look too clean, and I don't see any proof that the dog even tried to get into those toilets. You would see dog hair. You'd see something, I would think, but...
Which station were we on when we did those? Did we do a 2 or 3-part series?
3.
Was it on the Eric Spitfire channel, this one, or the main channel? Spitfires. The Eric Spitfire channel. I think it was, because I think the other one was shut down again because we were talking about too much truth. Every single time my station gets shut down, it's the same damn thing. It's Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook, every time.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, and then you would think, too, if the dog really is eating off the bodies, he would probably be throwing up bone piles and debris, right? So he would probably need more water. He would probably be more dehydrated.
Absolutely. Well, it knew how to turn the water faucet on, is what they're now saying. No, I'm kidding. Apple Valley police have stated that the dog had been taught to turn on the water faucet and flush the toilet.
Wow.
It's just ridiculous.
Right.
Ridiculous. Well, and that photo of the dog food, I'm also thinking that was not probably part of the 464 photos that we first got. I think that photo was part of Dan Hinnon's second set of photos.
Yeah, we never went over that in the 3-parter. We never went over it. And for anybody who is new tuning in or sees this video, you can go back to the Eric Spitfire channel or Spitfire Sentinel, whichever one was actually active at the time, because Lenny Posner didn't shut it down, and see these crime scene photos. But I had never seen the one that I've seen recently with the dog food bag unopened, like the dog is going to eat its owners before it's going to eat the damn dog food.
Right.
My God, it's ridiculous.
Well, and it's also the parts that the dog ate. So all of the missing body parts, right? We're talking about one of David's hands, his right hand, that the weapon was in. We're talking about both of his wife's hands, and we're talking about the daughter, her whole arm, and then most of their skulls. So in three weeks, That's what the dog ate. That's what they're telling us.
And we're supposed to believe that ripping through flesh is a better option for a dog, which knows where his dog food is, knows what bag it comes in, sees them pouring the dog food out of that bag every damn day, twice, 3 times a day, is going to eat their owners before they're going to try to tear through the bag to get their dog food. Give me a break.
Yeah.
That was the Steeler to me. I told you, Greg. That was it right there.
Oh, yeah.
As the dog owner, knowing that my dogs have tried to rip through their dog food before and have successfully ripped into their dog food bag. They would do that before they would try to eat me.
Yeah, and how easy would that have been for the cops to do a couple dog feces samples and prove it?
Mm-hmm.
Another question, though, that I had, and we'll never know because you'll never get those pictures, or the ME report, probably. But, okay, if you are shot point blank, back of the head with a .40 cal bullets, isn't it going to blow the whole front of your face away? I mean, isn't it safe to say that that's probably what happened to their faces?
And that could be why most of their skulls are missing.
Right.
Yeah. Yep, I'm with you on that. The problem is the lack of blood then.
Exactly.
Right? So, and if...
Your body's still going to pump out that blood until your heart is pumping, which it's not going to all of a sudden stop the second that you get shot in the head. You know, it's still going to pump for, I don't know, however long, but, you know, it's still going to be pumping out the blood.
Right. So if the wife and the daughter were watching something on that Surface Pro laptop and David walked up behind them and shot them, wouldn't there be more blood on the laptop?
I guess I would think so, but because of where it was found next to the couch closed, and it only has spatter, and I would assume it'd be brain spatter or whatever, on there that I could see from the photos. I mean, it just doesn't make sense of how it was sitting up against the couch closed.
I think Dan Hennon was saying that the dog could have made it 3 to 5 days off of the water from one toilet. So I know a lot of people have a lot of different theories about the dog, and that's one of the things that the Gray State team and the police don't really bring up. They don't bring up that dog because that dog helps us track what happened. It gives us a clear time frame of what happened when, and yet that's one of the things that they don't talk about, and that just raises a lot more questions.
Right. I had told you before about that I had helped out in the animal shelter here and took care of animals, and I know that dogs that were taken away from a bad situation, or, you know, apparently this dog was scared, and so maybe he, you know, hid downstairs for a while and was scared and hiding, so he wouldn't drink as much as you would think he would drink. But then we don't know anything to this point because they never gave us anything about the dog and probably never examined the dog.
And they never show up to debate us either.
Right. They could tell from they could have done blood work and checked his kidney function, you know, all of those things. Because when animals are brought in from abuse and neglect situation and they're taken to the vet to be checked over, they can tell, you know, oh, this dog hasn't had, you know, proper water because his kidneys are shutting down, blah, blah, blah. We will probably never know. And the dog is very much a key to all of this.
Mm.
You know, his skin, his hair, you could tell if he was malnourished or things just by those things, his appearance. We don't know, you know, the picture that they show of David's brother visiting Paleo at the animal shelter or the dog pound. We don't know when that was taken for sure, how long after the dog was found in the house. You know, we don't know what the dog actually looked like.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess on that, and I'm gonna say maybe a week after. Again,
So,
I'm just
okay,
guessing.
right, and so dogs that have been starved, it only takes a few days of feeding them a certain amount at a time on a certain schedule for them to start looking better even after a week.
Interesting. Okay. Now, if the dog was eating flesh and, you know, eating blood and all that, wouldn't that be stained on the dog's face? So the police could be able to quickly determine that the dog had eaten these bodies.
Well, I would think it wouldn't be stained like a stain in our clothes, because my dogs have gotten into things, and I've given them fresh meat bones and such, and when they have gotten it on, you know, their face and their paws, they lick it clean and they're done. So depending on how long after the last time that he was eating the flesh or bones, from the time they found him, he could have cleaned himself up.
Interesting. Okay. That's very good to know. That was one of my bigger questions. Okay.
And looking at the feces pictures and that are posted, I mean, I blew them up and was looking for bone fragments or stuff like that. And, I mean, you're going to see it. And he was a small dog. I have labs, so my dogs are different. They have bigger piles of feces, but you can see, you know, whether there's hair or bone or stuffing from the stuffed animal that he tore up, you know, that type of stuff. You can see that in there, but I didn't see any in the pictures where it showed the dog feces. At least not on the surface when you're looking at it.
Another great point. That was always one of the biggest questions, was the dog, and yeah, so.
And unfortunately, I'm sure that dog seen horrible things, but we'll never know.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was also a couple things that I read that said that David tried to shoot at the dog, that David did try to kill the dog, but couldn't. And it's like, how do you know that? Why would you even say that? Why would you even go there and just say, well, okay, David did this to the dog or whatever? Like, come on. Like, okay, so what they're saying, and the reason why they say that was based on like bullet holes and this and that, but yet they missed a bullet hole above their head. I find that there's just something very, very strange here. It
right.
does not make sense to me.
Right.
It's very clear that when the cops were there on that day, that they looked down because they took several photos of a bullet that was lodged into the basement wall. Yet they did not look up in the living room and see a bullet hole right above their heads in the living room ceiling. That is impossible. I just find that impossible. And for anybody who thinks that David Crowley is guilty, I have to ask you, how do you account for that? Why would police miss that? And if they miss that, if they miss a bullet hole, in the living room ceiling, what else could they have possibly missed?
Right, because when I was looking at them and I noticed that they took several angle pictures of all the different areas with all the different types of blood spatter on them,
Mm-hmm.
okay, why would you not look above you to see if there was any on the ceiling? If you did, you would have known that bullet hole was there.
Right. And if that's the bullet hole that led to the bullet that David Crowley shot himself with, well then why were they starting with the theory that David Crowley killed himself when they didn't even know about this bullet hole that led to the bullet that David Crowley killed himself with? Now,
Exactly.
The important thing about that bullet hole is the trajectory, because I'm still trying to work out where that, where it entered into the ceiling. There's still some questions that I have there, which is why it's great to have so many people looking at this, and not looking at this to help me prove anything or to be on my side, because I don't have any side, and I think most people that are looking at this don't really have any side, but people like Sean Wright try to get us to choose some side. They try to get us to think, well, you have to have some type of a theory. But it's like, no, we don't have to have any theory. We have the questions. You don't have the answers. And that's probably another reason why Sean Wright did not show up here tonight, because he doesn't have any answers. Because he wasn't there. The only people that were there were the people that were involved in this crime. And if Sean Wright says he wasn't there, then he doesn't know what happened. He has no idea.
That is very true. That just leaves so many open ends. I mean, I just don't understand how, and even Dan had brought up the point about the handwriting analysis was refused. Why would you refuse them to do the handwriting analysis? Because there are so many questions on the way David wrote, the way Kamel wrote, but there's notes jotted down here and there that aren't the normal way that they wrote things, which leads me to believe that whoever else was there and involved in this had tried to write things down to make it look like David or Kamel had written them, when clearly there are questions of, okay, well, he always writes this way, and she always wrote this way. But, I mean, why not have the analysis done? It was included in the investigation, apparently.
Yeah.
And they just didn't want it to happen.
Yep, they had asked for it. I forget which detective had asked, or somebody had asked for it, and they were like, "No, we don't need to do that." Well, why not? Wouldn't that help prove your case?
Exactly.
Now, if it helps disprove your case, then I could see why you wouldn't want that in there.
Which I'm sure it would have, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it was like they wanted to just get this case over with and just move on. But they knew. They also knew that there would be so many people asking these questions. Now, I often wonder, was that part of this? If this is a psyop, then I wonder if that was also part of it, for them to go with that government theory, so that then they could say pretty much the same thing we're saying now. Well, if you can prove it, then do it. If you can't, then it's just theory. The same way that I don't think anybody can prove that this is a government hit, it's the same way, because people cannot prove that David Crowley is guilty. Now, we can say, this is my theory based on ABCD, and when you look at those theories, I can see why some people would think that, at some level, somebody within the government or within the intelligence or somewhere in Black Ops or something like that, why they would have killed David Crowley. That doesn't make it true, but I'm trying to also think, okay, well, why would somebody think that David Crowley is guilty? I can't find the evidence. I can't find anything, and I'm going to keep looking for it, but I don't think it's out there.
I think also there's a lot of things being withheld. I think there are still many, many more pictures being withheld, and where is the actual rest of this report?
Yeah.
Right. And, I mean, the initial police report is the only thing that you guys received.
Yeah.
That isn't a full investigative report because BCA should have their own investigation report to go with that. And to my knowledge, you guys don't have that, right?
No, we don't. But I would love
that
to
would have
know how
been,
we get that.
Right. That would have been what gave us more information that we have no clue where it's at because it wasn't included in that initial police report.
Yeah. There was no reason for that. There was a lot of...
And I don't know, like I said, I'm going to talk to a few people and see maybe how to go about trying to get that stuff, but I'm going to assume that all those things are being withheld because you know, that maybe the answers to the questions we're looking for are in there, but they don't want us to know because they wanted to go with the, this was the result of their investigation. This is how they're ruling it, and end of story.
Yep.
Well, I'll keep you posted on that stuff, and I'm going to let you guys go, and everybody have a good holiday.
Hey, are you still there? Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And
yeah, no problem.
You have a very Merry Christmas, even though I guess we can't say Christmas nowadays.
Yeah, right? You're not supposed to say Merry Christmas either. Why, I don't know. I just don't understand it. But anyways. But have a good night, and I will be talking to you again.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye now. Well, we're still here. Almost 2 hours in. Still no Sean Wright. I know, I don't know if anybody else is going to be here, or I think Eric had another technical difficulty. We'll see if he can join us. Come back in.
Hello, Greg.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good, good. It just was,
You've been listening for a while.
I've been listening to the last few minutes here. I didn't have much time here, but I joined in late. I see Sean didn't make it. Have we heard about his girlfriend? Is he still dating Lee Ray Anderson?
You know, I haven't heard anything about her. She hasn't posted, or I think she posted right before the documentary came out. But no, I haven't heard anything from her. And I would say compared to the things that Sean Wright said, she's been very, very nice. But of course, maybe not the best comparison.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It just seems like she hasn't posted in a while, and was pretty frequent to put her information out there. And since Sean has been very, I would say, violent with his temperament recently, it almost seems like there was a bad breakup or something to that effect, and maybe someone else can call in or join to see if that's true or not, because I know Sean's been sober since 2007, and I'm just hoping he's not off the wagon or anything like that with his comments, because she told me just on some instant messages that he's really gotten his act together and cleaned up in his life and straightened things up, and but this last week's outbursts, I'm just hoping all things are well with him on that front, but we haven't heard from anybody, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm too. I mean, I just pray for him. That's all that I can do, and he can bash Jesus Christ and he can bash us, but he's still a person. He's still another human being. We don't wish any ill will towards him, even though he might wish some towards us. We're not trying to bring people down. We're actually trying to just kind of lift people up and just say, you know what, like, it's okay to agree to disagree, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
I don't know. Yeah, this last week was very just strange. I would say it's very strange. The way that Sean Wright acted was very, very strange. And it didn't seem like, it was very inconsistent too, some of the things he was saying. Yeah, I never found a consistency in these things that he was doing. It was always, just not only the violent behavior towards me, I guess, but also just, the cussing and all that stuff. It was just like, there was no point to it. We were just trying to just, okay. Like I said, he contacted me. He wanted to debate me after I put this out there saying that I would debate anybody. And he said, okay. And then he didn't show up. So.
Yeah, it says here in my notes, I'm going back and looking that, she started dating him, this is Lorraine, back in 2012. So we're in 2017 now. If they are still together, that's 5 years in. Boy, I just don't know if something happened or not, because that lengthy message he wrote, that essentially that he spammed, several people reported it as spam on the Justice for David Crowley of Gray State. And so as an admin, I log in one morning and I see there's six posts of messages of spam reported that I had reviewed, and they're all his that other people had reported. So he not only posted that just on one site and replaced in a response to something that I wrote, but he copied and pasted that on 5 or 6 other threads on that Justice page alone, and then posted it on the Justice for David Crowley and Family page, and then it sounds like that he had pasted it in some instant messages as well to some folks. So he just really spammed the heck out of that thing, and he put his own name on it and signed off on it and everything. So the first one that I saw was like 5:30 in the morning. So the first thing I thought of was, he was up late, and I hope he just didn't spam that out and then regret it the next morning if he wasn't aware of what he was doing. But it was very poorly done. But who knows?
So I have Sean Wright blocked. So I didn't know about any of this. I didn't hear about any of this. So can you kind of tell us how this all happened, what Sean Wright said, and we can put those screenshots up there too, so people can see some of these ramblings that just do not make sense to me. It was very strange.
Spoiler alert.
Let's see. His first post was directly to the admin on the page at Justice for David Crowley of Gray State. So I saw that first in my inbox as an instant message. That's how I first saw it. And then he started he must have had it pasted or copied, and then went to various posts that were getting airtime on the Facebook page, and it just pasted as comments on the threads. And I know you're not too active on that other Justice for the Gray State page, and that's when I emailed you that afternoon and said, Sean's really been pasting a lot of stuff on the comments, and you said you were unaware of it at that point. I said, well, check it out when you get a chance. And that was that day that.
Which I couldn't see. It was only after people started posting the screenshots that I could actually see what Sean.
Yeah, that's the first time you saw it. Yeah, that's correct. And mine, of course, even if I wanted to write back, it shows up as Facebook user unknown, and you can no longer respond to this message. So right away when he posted to the inbox, he blocks himself and then leaves the page. So I can't even respond, to him or to it or to the message or anything. But that's how people started screenshotting it when he started making the lengthy posts.
Yeah, he brought up that one thing about Chris Peck. I mean, he brought it up like he was proud of it, like he was proud that they were able to get Chris Peck into your house without you knowing it. To me, it's like that's something very shameful, very shady, very shady.
Very, you're right, embarrassing even to admit that.
Very embarrassing, because how are you going to sit here and say that you're all about truth and you know the truth, and then you're doing these things that have nothing to do with truth? All of these games. So
correct. I'm gonna try to find that thing now.
And talking about my family and talking about that is one thing. Telling lies is a whole different thing. So yeah, that's not cool, man. That's not cool, because it's not about me, it's not about my family, and I can tell you everything that he said about my family is wrong. But he's free to keep saying it. The problem is the truth is not with him. The truth is not on his side. All of those things, all those sexual things, just all those just stupid things that a normal human being should not say, it does make you kind of hope that Sean Wright is okay, that he's mentally okay, that he's not going through some relapse or something like that.
He does mention in the note that he says, quote, just on the admission alone by Greg on December 13th, 2017, saying that he has not yet seen, quote, a gray state, unquote, is means for me not debating any of you. Yes, I swear, and yes, I may be hot-headed at times, because I'm Sean motherfucking Wright, and that is due to my passion and love of my friends and family. So he heard that you had said that you had not yet seen the movie, and basically says, if that's the case, I'm not debating any of you. So he sounds like he's not interested in debating, but he did respond back and talk to you, call you or whatever. Did he call you or text you?
Both.
That he actually did want to debate. So that's where I'm confused.
Yeah. First he sent me several texts, which I have posted on the Facebook group. There's probably more after that I need to post, but I did get to the point where I just had to block him. Had to block him from calling me, because you know, we're not in the 6th grade. You know what I mean? We're not kids who are just gonna yell and scream and all that. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna do that. So he just
I told you from Thanksgiving. Adorable.
It just seemed like he was just he was just trying to get me riled up so that I would.
He was trying to, hoping that you would engage, I think is what he wanted.
Yeah, basically.
He even goes after Mike Pachesney.
Yeah, that was too. I thought that was a little strange.
He said, quote, if Gray State happens or not, it will not be because 40 people on a Facebook page. You are all nothing. You cunts just don't get it. So I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't even know if he gets that, really.
40 people on a page. There's 1,200 on the one page and 7,900 on the other. So 10,000 folks together.
I think he's very active. I mean, Dan, you were so tolerant of people and really close to a.
How proud of you we all are. You're an inspiration.
You know, you let people say whatever they wanted to say in the group. Very, very tolerant.
She was 8, a little Girl Scout friend
I think up until one point where they're here to just speak hatred or these problems. But they weren't there to really find out truth, and they weren't there to help us find truth.
What do you think?
Correct. Yeah, I did draw a lot of backlash for being too nice in those early weeks.
Yeah.
A lot of it's in messages by saying, "What are you doing? You've got obvious disinfo, misinfo, shills, trolls, everything trolling the page, and you're letting them all in." And I basically responded by saying that, "Well, let it go the first week or two, and then we'll go after these guys." And then it started, and then the bands started. I think with Mr. Scott Wilson was the very first guy off the loop, right out of the gate, and then we ended up banning, I think, 25, 26 individuals over the course of the next week or two to just start cleaning house. But we left everyone in. It was wide open that first couple of weeks, and like I said, with you and I, this is not our first rodeo. Those following cases like this for the very first time are easily offended and highly offended at some of the stuff that goes on here when these people start coming out of the woodwork. But we've done this before. We've seen this before. We know the rules of engagement, and we figured this was coming down the pipe, and it did. And so we ended up cleaning it up later, but we let them have their fun at the beginning.
Yeah, and then we got all those little, there were people that would just post some weird spam, just porno spam, to basically try to get the Facebook shut down. That's what they wanted, and that's what they said.
And all these instances like this where there's a crime committed or something and they want it shut down, the last thing that they're expecting is a group, a citizen group like this to come out and then keep pushing for the truth, going to keep pushing for honest answers, because they'll come out with such a force, and the newbies, for the newbies, they will cave, shut the page down after the threats come in, and after the instant messages come in, and the texts like I have received, and the typical person will shut it down and say, you know what, this just is not, this doesn't do it for me. This is not worth it. I got a life, I got an outside job and a family, I got to shut this thing down. And then that is the modus operandi. That's how they win. So by us digging our heels in and saying, no, we're not going to, that really throws it off on a tangent, because now what else do you have? And now you've got really nothing, and now you've basically pulled the you've turned it back around on them, and it's showing who's got the real control, and it really freaks people out who are control freaks, because they can't handle it, and that's when they become aggressive.
Right.
And so I think it worked in this instance, in this case, because we had a real-time, event going on in real time on Facebook, on social media, that we basically exposed. And right when it got bad, the first things that come out is they want to take over and shut down the site, or they want to grant or request administrative rights to the page. And we saw that with Danny August Mason, Sean Wright himself, who was supposed to be on here tonight. Very first things that came out was those two requesting administrative rights to the page. They did it with the Justice for David Crowley of Gray State page, and the creator at the time, Thomas Lapp, who was the founder of that page, granted them. And it was only hours later that users were able to visibly see chunks of data, chunks of threads and comments removed and deleted off that page before Thomas realized that he had been had, and it was all just a ruse to get the page. So when I said no to the administrative rights on my page, Justice for David Crowley and Family, that's what really set off the guys. Sean Wright in particular is when he contacted me, called me, and that's when the threats and everything began. And they just assumed that I would cave. Give them the rights, problem solved. Shut it down, delete the page. But nope, and now here we are. The good thing with this, for those of us fighting for truth and justice, is we're coming up now on 3 years later, and we've got a thriving Facebook page or pages, Twitter handles, and a very active YouTube with this case. It's very active in social media. So through all the ups and downs, we're still here battling it out.
Yep. Yeah, well, I think the smartest thing that Sean Wright has ever done is to not show up here. So Sean Wright definitely loses. This debate is over. I'm declaring victory here. And if Sean Wright wants to come back and debate at any time, I would ask him to contact the moderator, Eric Spitfire Wilkinson, because obviously I have blocked Sean Wright. I have blocked him, and I really don't want anything more to do with him unless he's willing to come here and debate me right here. I have nothing more. I've given this guy every opportunity. I've given him every chance to just, share with the public your view. He loves to contact people privately. He loves to try to talk to them privately. But he doesn't want to do it in some open forum like this.
No, he'll never do that.
And at this new Gray State documentary, they had a Q&A, right? They had this panel. That's like one of those panels where you have 4 or 5 people on there who all believe the same thing. Why didn't they have us on those panels?
No, they didn't want that. That would not go against the official narrative.
Right. The other thing that I just wanted to point out about when Sean Wright said that on December 13th, I made the statement that I hadn't seen a Gray State. I've been making that statement ever since I learned about this. It's been very clear. It's been public knowledge for him to say that he's saying this on December 13th is no, I've been saying that for a long time. I've never, there's never, you know, and what I'm looking forward to is actually seeing it now and seeing if it does change my view on it. Because I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to be willing to say,
let it roll down the driveway.
I've seen these different things. Now I think David is guilty.
Your daughter? It's Claire. We need her to leave. I don't want to be around something that I come unravel.
Maybe those poll workers think shit.
Showing what or into thinking whatever they want me to think.
Yeah, and Greg. Yeah, and Greg, you're right on the money there too. Even with 2 weeks ago when Danny August Mason came on and started spewing his hate on the pages and then went away after one day, his first thing was he asked you and me both, have we seen the documentary? So that just goes to show how out of touch he was. You and I have both stated many times publicly that we have not seen the documentary. We're not really interested in actually seeing it, but we've also said that we haven't seen it, so it should not be news to anybody following this that we have not taken the time to watch this 93 minutes of strangeness is what I've heard it called. Very strange documentary, or even better yet, probably what you said was a sloppy-mentary.
Well, yeah, and they also never talk about that our criticism is based on everything that we've read, based on the people that we've talked to who have seen this. These people who say, well, we have seen this, and this is why David Crowley is guilty. Then you actually read what they wrote, and you see they don't know anything either. They have no idea why David did what he did. They tried to tell us that this film, the only question it doesn't answer is why. That is a total lie. This film answers nothing. So the only thing that it really answers is that they have no answer. So, and that's just my criticism, and I would say yours too.
Maybe you are the one that is bothering me. How do you like
by people who have written things that know why David Crowley did this. And they say they can't even prove it.
I know we gained a lot of new members after that first initial airing on A&E that night, on that Monday night, the 11th of December. And the people that joined were like, the whole movie was horribly awkward because it didn't really make sense. It didn't follow any path, and in fact, all it did was leave me, the viewer who watched it, with more questions, and that's how they stumbled upon. They came home then that very night and looked up the website and our pages, and then became, members and started following it because they knew it just didn't jive. It didn't sit well in their gut after watching that documentary. The pieces didn't add up as the recurring theme that I heard from folks who did see the documentary. The puzzle pieces did not fit.
Right. Heard the same thing.
Yep, it's true. Well, I got to jump off here, Greg, here in a few minutes. Glad I was able to join her the last few minutes. I was unable to meet Kat, and I know she's been posting a lot recently. So, Kat, if you're listening, good job, good work. You're asking good. What I like about these new folks that are on the group, Greg, is they're asking good questions. Yeah. That's a good sense of how open-minded or how they're really asking. What's the word? They don't have cognitive dissonance. It seems like some of these new members on the group. They're open-minded, and they're actually having critical thinking by the questions they're asking. So it's good to see. It's a breath of fresh air to see open-minded individuals joining the group and asking questions. And we know there's a lot of lurkers out there also that aren't necessarily posting or making comments or adding to threads, but are taking this all in, and all that is very good. We welcome all the new folks interested in the case.
That's right. That's right. And we'll keep on searching. We'll get there, man.
All right, Greg, I got to jump off.
All right. I'm
Have a good weekend.
Shut this down too. You have a good weekend too. Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and may Jesus Christ be with you all. Thank you all for joining us. Shutting this down now. Talk to you later, Dan.
See ya.
See you.